What began as a reaction to the jihadist activity in Mali in 2012 has steadily expanded across the belt of the Sahel region. In this semi-arid climate, just south of the Sahara, some 4,000 French troops are combating jihadist forces in 5 African countries. Not since the colonial era has France shown this level of economic and military commitment in Africa. But what exactly is this conflict about, and why do the French feel the need to get involved? I'm your host Shirvan and welcome to Caspian Report. For perks like sources and early access, visit patreon.com/Caspian Report. In 2012, deep in Africa's Sahel region, Tuareg separatists rose up in arms and expelled the national army from the north of Mali. At the same time, in the capital, a coup deposed the ruling president. In just 2 months, the government of Mali collapsed and the country found itself in an unprecedented crisis. Desperate for relief, the Malian interim government submitted a resolution to the UN Security Council and officially requested for French military assistance to deal with the decaying security. As a result, France launched Operation Serval and helped preserve Mali's territorial integrity. The engagement included small contingents of British and Italian special forces as well. However, the Arab Spring had dramatically upset the regional security and enabled the rise of jihadist groups. In turn, this prompted French policymakers to upgrade and redouble their commitment. Officially recognized as Operation Barkhane, France launched a cross-border counter-terrorism mission on August 2014 to fight Islamist fighters in the African countries of Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger. The military operation also coordinated with UN peacekeeping forces and the United States. On the surface, this whole undertaking makes little sense, and only a small margin of the global community is even aware that this conflict is being waged. Yet, a closer look at the periphery reveals genuine security needs. Foremost, the Sahel region can be characterized by endemic corruption, a weak judicial system, and an inability by the state to provide basic social services. This poor state of governance has enabled an environment for extremist groups to deepen their local connections and strengthen their resolve. As a result, the entirety of the Sahel is tormented by pockets of jihadist militants. The larger factions like Boko Haram operate near the proximity of the Lake Chad basin, while the smaller ones are scattered throughout Mali, Chad, and Niger. Moreover, these Sahel-based groups are separated by the Sahara from like-minded organizations such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Algeria and Libya. For years, the Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups in North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa have been trying to expand and merge their territorial holdings and influence. The belief is that such a confederation of jihadist forces in the Sahel would provide the groups with new sources of revenue, since they would control the trade in illicit activities that pass through the region. Additionally, the area would provide a fertile ground for the recruitment of future fighters. Meanwhile, the leadership in Paris is concerned that if such a union of jihadist forces is left to their own devices, it would create a corridor of revenues, arms, and fighters between the Sahel and Libya, which would then covertly flow into Europe and France. Clearly, this is an unacceptable situation. Thus, to combat jihadists at home, the French, in cooperation with their American counterparts, have taken the fight to Africa. The counterterrorism effort seeks to restrict the jihadist forces in the Sahel from moving north towards Libya by striking them at their source. The area of operation is somewhat vague, but in general, the Americans focus on the Lake Chad basin, while French military operations are conducted primarily in Mali. Yet, at the nexus of the battle space is the Republic of the Niger, which is where most of the present fighting is conducted. Niger's geopolitical importance is signified by the fact that it is surrounded by jihadist activity. To the south in Nigeria and Cameroon, Boko Haram is wreaking havoc to the countryside. To the west in Mali, a collection of Al-Qaeda-associated groups seeks to overthrow the local government and institute an Islamic State. Finally, to the north in Libya and Algeria, members of ISIS and Al-Qaeda have taken root and look to expand their territorial holdings. Beyond the activity of jihadist groups, numerous roads pass through Niger, linking the nations in the Sahel and North Africa with each other. One such route goes through the city of Agadez, in the center of Niger. The immediate surrounding is vast and sparsely populated. This allows militants to move about freely. As such, Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups have been trying to establish a cohesive foothold in the Agadez region, and thereby link to all the other jihadist forces, which would enable them to reach Libya and from there Europe through the Mediterranean. The government of Niger lacks the resources and know-how to address this threat by itself, and has delegated the issue to the United States and France. At the present, the Pentagon is constructing a sophisticated airbase for drones in Agadez, which will be accompanied by facilities to host special forces. These military installations are meant to stem the movement of Europe-bound militants and arms before they reach Libya. In the past, the airport in the capital in southwest Niger was used to strike targets across the region. However, the battle space in question is just too vast for the French and American forces to cover. Hence, policymakers in Paris and Washington believe that they need to set up more bases to enhance their operations. The airbase in Agadez will be the third foreign military installation in Niger, and there are many more similar military bases in the other Sahel countries. Still, considering the immensity of the battle space, we may very well see the continued militarization of the Sahel. Yet, despite the ongoing installations and the intent of France and the United States, their objective is not to eliminate all jihadist groups in the Sahel. Such a goal would require a much larger commitment of forces and economic means than Paris and Washington are willing to make. Instead, much like the fight against Al-Shabaab in the Horn of Africa, the goal is to prevent a unified jihadist control across a wider space of land. So, disruption, not elimination, is the goal of France. Prior to the intervention, it was the Libyan army who dealt with the insurgents in the Sahel. However, with the destruction of Libya in 2011, to which French and American forces contributed, a can of worms was opened. Weapons that belonged to the Libyan army were plundered and distributed across a multitude of sectarian and jihadist groups. Now, France is trying to convince Algeria to take on a larger role in the security of the region, but Algerian officials have expressed no interest to risk casualties and commit economic resources to a security dilemma that was caused by France and NATO in the first place. And unless a strong central government is put back together in Libya, there seems to be no end in sight for France's military commitment in the Sahel. This was a Kashmir Report by me, Shirvan. Credit goes to our Patreon community for giving us the means to produce content like this. If you want to learn more about our crowdfunding, or if you want to gain access to perks like early access and sources, visit patreon.com/KashmirReport for more information. In any case, thank you for your patience and Sarol.